Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Let me introduce to you the one and only Per Nilsson, guitarist, composer, and producer for Swedish death metal titans Symmetry. The band is going to release their brand new album, The Singularity Phase 2 Xenotaph, on June the 9th by Nuclear Blast Records. Per, thank you very much for joining. How are you, mate?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. How are you doing over there in Argentina?
It's all fine. It's going great around here. So, well, Per, thank you, as I said, for joining. First of all, congrats for your brand new album. It's quite amazing. Um, my first question would be, this is Scar Symmetry, first album in 9 years. I know it was a little bit delayed because you joined Meshuggah and then Nocturnal Rites. So my question is, what difference do you find in relation to the previous album, The Singularity Phase 1, Neo Humanity?
Uh, can you say that question again? I don't know
Yeah,
if I have had a dropout.
yeah. My question is, what difference do you see in relation to the previous album?
Well, I mean, it seems in a way like there's almost 9 years in between the releases,
Yeah,
which would suggest that there would be a bigger difference just because of the time span. But actually, this phase two was actually written only a few years after phase one was written. It was written in 16, recorded, most of it was recorded in 16 and 17. And then we slowly worked on it up until a couple of years ago when it was finished at last. So they were, for me, they were kind of written in the same sort of era in my life. Uh, they were both written before Nocturnal Rites and Meshuggah, before I became a dad, before the pandemic and everything. So for me personally, it belongs to that era. Um, and so, like, if I would write, like, I'm just about to head into writing mode again to write the next Scar Symmetry album, which I feel is gonna be a different experience, just because I'm in a different phase in my life. But so I mean, so there are things that kind of connects the albums for me personally, and also musically. There are some things from phase one that reappears in phase two. Uh, but the idea with the trilogy is to let each part of the story be its own thing. To have like the first part uh, is telling the story of the rise of AI and artificial intelligence and
yeah,
how it becomes malevolent and evil, so to speak. Um, but there's still some sort of feeling of promise and hope to the story in a way. So the music is kind of progressive and melodic, and it's leaning more towards that side of our sound, whereas phase two, it's a more dystopic story where it's like war is waged upon mankind by AI and the people who have upgraded themselves with new technology. They are so it's like war. It's horrible, and there's all these crazy events, and aliens show up to be on the side of humanity in the war against technology. Uh, so it was fitting for me that the music would also be darker and more aggressive. Um, so we're sort of, even though there are many things that connects the albums, like or like that's part, like a general part of our style, that there is a lot of melody, there's a lot of progressive stuff. Still, this album is exploring the dark side of the Scar Symmetry, is like what we do. It explores that direction further than we've ever done before.
yeah. Yeah.
So
So
that's what
recently
sets the
you
albums
talk
apart.
about the rise of AI. The world has changed a lot since 2014 to now. And this week, for example, Geoffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, left Google and warned out about the dangers of the AI. So, how do you see this situation? I mean, in the end, it's like the director of Terminator wasn't so wrong. Skynet is coming for us.
Yeah, and I mean the story that we are telling is a sci-fi story, right? So it's like, it, I mean, I think there might be some potential evils of AI for like regular people that are like more scary and pressing than the idea of something taking place like in our Singularity saga. Uh, but it would be boring to write a concept like album trilogy about AI taking our jobs, right? That doesn't sound too exciting. But I think like the real life danger like right now is like what's going to happen to society, what's going to happen if like half of the jobs are automated, and probably pretty soon, like sooner than we think. Like this,
Yeah.
the like the advancement in this technology in just like the last year or so has been incredible, and it's very likely, I believe, that the the it's gonna progress even faster and faster, and it's gonna be propelled by like that. All the technology advancement is gonna also be propelled that we are gonna have AI, so that's gonna help us take things further faster.
Yeah.
So so what's gonna happen? What happens if half of like the jobs disappear and people are laid off? That's like crazy to think of. And surely other jobs will turn up, like gonna be other things happening uh, that we might not have thought of yet. But it's crazy to think about. And what's gonna happen if the people that are owning and are in charge of the technology, if they can just automate all these jobs, which means that the profits from what these automated things, it's that gonna go to the people, only those people. So like it's gonna be, it's already like in the world that there's just like a few people that control like wealth and assets, like more than half
Yeah. I'm just
the
thinking, for
population on the
example,
planet.
yeah,
That's gonna be like skewed even more.
yeah, yeah. I'm just thinking, for example, the guy from Spotify.
Hmm.
Spotify, I know that we as musicians are not earning the money we receive, because Spotify has changed a lot about how musicians get their money.
Hmm.
So, well, returning back to the album,
Yeah.
what about the pre-production and the writing process? What can you tell me about it?
Uh, well, for the trilogy, the thing that we did differently than all the previous albums was that on the previous albums we just decided it's time to make an album. We wrote the songs, did the lyrics for the songs, and that was done. And there was generally not like a big plan behind it. Like, let's do a concept about this. Like, even though maybe maybe Holographic Universe had like a kind of a loose story thread. Well, not a story, but it was like the songs kind of lived in the same universe somehow. Uh, for the trilogy, we decided that we're gonna write a sci-fi story about the technological singularity, and we wrote a synopsis for all three phases before even having written a single note and a single word of lyrics. So we already had the scope and the synopsis of the thing. So, so I like I knew what the each phase was gonna be sounding like in a general sense. Um, so yeah, so that was kind of different for us. But other than that, it's been sort of business as usual,
Mhm.
actually writing. And this is the second album where I'm the sole music composer since Jonas left after Unseen Empire. So now I'm writing uh, all of the music, and I'm playing all the rhythm guitars, all the keyboards. I play the bass, and I do most of the backing vocals, and I
Nice.
mix and master. So there's like a lot of work for me these days. On this album, this album is the first album where we have Benjamin Ellis on second guitar. So it's his recording debut with the album with the band. So he plays a lot of leads. Interestingly enough, the album, since it was written in 16, it was actually before he became an official member of the band. He had been like a touring member before. So I wrote the album with the idea in mind that I was going to play all of the guitars and all the guitar leads. But then we added him to the lineup, and then it made sense to like make room for him on the album. So I gave him some of the solo parts that I had planned for myself, and then I also snuck in other places for him to add solos, like at the start of the song during the intro riffs. I like we can put a solo here, and so there's quite a lot of guitar soloing on the album.
Amazing, amazing.
If you're
And
into that thing.
okay, so how about your gear? I see some Strandberg guitars behind. Uh,
Yeah,
what can you
yeah,
tell me? What kind of amps do you usually use? Like,
um, well, here I've got my guitar, my
oh, nice. Yeah.
Strandberg Singularity. We
Hmm.
started working on my signature guitar around the time when we were working on the first album.
Yeah.
So we decided to name the guitar Singularity. So this is the latest iteration of it. Like we went from having red hardware to black.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry I don't have a light here, but
No,
uh,
but it's okay. Yeah, that's great, mate.
is this published as the video thing or audio?
Yeah, yeah, it's a video thing. Yeah,
It's a video
but
thing.
we
Yeah.
we edit it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, all right. Well, good thing I combed my hair and put makeup on. Yeah. So well, so this is the guitar I'm
Okay.
using.
Hmm.
Uh, Benjamin is also a Strandberg player right now, so which is good. So yeah, so I'm using my Strandberg guitar,
Hmm.
true temperament frets, Lundgren pickups, an amazing instrument. And for the amp tones, we used all digital this time.
Okay.
Uh, I've been a fan of amp emulations for a long time because how convenient it is, and I've been using it for demoing things. We've been using it live, the Line 6 stuff. We've been using that live since 2007, I believe.
Yeah.
Uh, for album tones, we've stuck with real amps, at
Yeah.
least for the rhythm tones, for a long time. But in like last bunch of years, I feel like the technology has gotten to the point where it's like it's so much more convenient to do amp sim plugins than to like bother having a big roaring guitar amp with a 4x12, and you have to mic it up, you have to have a nice room and everything. So
Yeah.
so it's all neural DSP,
Mm.
which are also like just like you are a South American guy working with the Finnish Chaoszine. They are South Americans working in Helsinki, um, producing amazing gear for bass and guitar.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
they are
So,
they are from Chile and you're from Argentina, but
really?
and yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they I think they started in Chile, but if they thought that like the infrastructure for doing such a thing would be better in Helsinki or something. Like for sure, it wasn't the weather that drew them there.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to search some info. So, returning to the album, talking about one of the songs of the album, I really like Altergeist,
Mm.
which for me it was amazing because it's progressive, it has some death metal stuff, and it has the speed of black metal. So, what can you tell me about this song?
Uh, it's like the main parts of the song was actually written in, I believe, 1999, which is
Oh,
kind of crazy. I had a period of time in the late 90s when I hurt both my arms from over practicing. I was practicing like crazy, so I got like repetitive strain injuries. So I had to stop playing guitar for like 4 years, which
oh,
was a kind of weird time in my life. And I was a young man and I didn't know what to do. But and I certainly never thought that I would have a career in music. When my injuries sort of healed, I was almost 30. So I thought like I'm way too old to ever have a career. So that's kind of neat that I'm talking to you here today and I have myself a little bit of a career. But anyway, like during these years when I couldn't play, I got myself a little sequencer, and like this is a long time ago. This is 20 like
yeah,
20 years ago.
more than
So
20 years ago. Yeah.
yeah, so technology. I didn't have a computer with all this amazing software, so I just had a little sequencer with general MIDI sounds that didn't sound too cool, but it was enough. I could punch in like notes, and I could write songs in that way. So I just wrote a lot of different things, like orchestral things, metal things, and I've saved some of the like stuff that I thought was good, but I never had any place like to put them. Like I didn't have any project where they did fit, and they never seemed to fit like on a regular Scar Symmetry album. But when we started doing the trilogy, and we're doing it, it's a little bit of a different thing musically wise. So on phase one, uh, there are parts of like the intro part of Neo Human is actually written back then in '99, and on this album, there are like the song "A Voyage with Tailed Meteors" is like most of it is written back then, and Altergeist, same with this song, was also written. The main part was written back then, so it's kind of nice for me to. I had those years that were so weird, and it felt so like unnecessary to have to drop playing the guitar for all that time. But now being able to pick those things up and using them kind of like completes the circle for me, and
Yeah.
it makes sense of the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
But yeah,
Okay.
Altergeist has that black metal vibe, which I don't think we don't really have anything in our discography that sounds like that
Mhm.
song. I think it kind of stands out in our discography.
Okay. Okay. Well, you're back on tour after a long time. So how is this Xenotaph tour going on? You're going to play in Finland in July and August, don't you?
Yeah, we had two festivals in Finland.
Yeah.
We just came off a short arena tour in Sweden with Meshuggah, which was really nice. And we were fortunate enough to be offered it so that we could tie it together with like the promotional campaign for the album. So we released the first singles, Scorch Quadrant, on the very first day of the tour. So we got to add that song also to our set list and try it out, and it's been working out really nice in the live setting. So
Great, mate. Great. So I know you grew up listening to Frank Zappa. So, what other artists or records have made you the artist you are today? And apart from that, how many hours do you practice usually?
Well, um, these days I don't practice all that much. I don't sit down with a guitar like I used to, like in my formative years when I was a teen, and I practice all the time. And like I just told you, I practice up until the point that I like hurt myself. So yeah, so there were a good few years when I practice as much as I possibly could. And I remember the summer when I was like 18 or 19, which is a time when like it's summer. You're supposed to be out with your friends and like have beers and pick up girls and whatever. But I was so incredibly focused on the guitars, and my friends called me like, "Hey, Per, what are you doing? You want to come to this party?" And I was like, I don't know. And I was like doing exercise. Maybe I can join later, or, you know. So
Shredding stuff all over.
yes, so it was really crazy. But these days, it's I'm always thinking about music. I'm always having something going on in my head. There's always like a melody or something happening. So so even if I'm not sitting down with the instrument all that much, I'm always working on musical ideas because I can hear the stuff that I play in my head, and I can explore melodies and chords and stuff without picking up the guitar. So I don't necessarily need to sit down with the guitar to explore.
Create, yeah.
So, uh, but yeah, I mean, I grew up. I was born in the '70s, so I grew up in the '80s, which was the time when I like discovered metal music. I had an older brother who 3 years older who had all the good albums. Like he turned me on to Accept, Dio, Metallica, Iron Maiden, like the stuff that was good at the time. Gary
Yeah.
Moore, Europe, uh, and later on, when I was like 15, 16, when I went into music school and I started really practicing my ass off. I also got interested in music that were more like almost directed to musicians or interesting for musicians, like some fusion music. The music of
Aldimiola,
Frank.
for example, Return to Forever, some kind of.
Actually, not so much,
Uh-huh.
and because uh, I wasn't a big fan of '70s music. Uh, and I think that might have been like a generational thing because I got into music in the like mid '80s was when I when I went from listening to kids music
Yeah.
to developing my own taste for music. It was like music from the '70s sounded like dry and dull to me. Like the production wasn't what I liked, and a lot of the music was kind of blues based, which wasn't my thing. So it was like I didn't care for things like Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple and Black Sabbath. Um, I could listen to some stuff that like Black Sabbath did in the '80s because
Yeah.
it had an updated sound, but I didn't care for the '70s sound. Nowadays I do. Nowadays I think there's plenty of cool stuff from the '70s, but at that time I really preferred the more polished and reverby like '80s production. Uh, because it like '70s stuff sounded like dad music to me, like so yeah, so Return to Forever. I don't think I heard them back then because like back then you had to know what to look for and you had to go to the record shop or you had to have someone that played it for you. Uh, but I preferred like '80s fusion. I listened to Alan Holdsworth, became like my favorite guitar player, and he still is. Chicoria Electric Band from the '80s.
Yeah.
When I listen back to some of this today, it's like some of it now sounds really dated and cheesy, even if like the songwriting and musicianship is cool. Like not all of it has aged super well.
Hmm.
And also then I got into Frank Zappa and stuff like that. Progressive stuff. Dream Theater came on, like early
Yeah.
90s. Then the death metal movement of the early 90s. All the bands from like Florida
Yeah.
and the bands from Stockholm. So yeah, so that was like kind of my musical upbringing. All the while, we all also had all the like the background noise of 80s and 90s pop music that I
Hmm.
also liked a lot of.
Yeah.
So, and Scar Symmetry somehow became a big melting pot of all these things in a way. Like in a way, it's like the stuff that I heard in the 80s, like from the mid 80s to the mid 90s. That's sort of where I come from, and the stuff that I go back to, and Scar Symmetry for me, like we decided for the band to be like our music was, uh, we wanted to like to be able to just bring everything into it, and I think since we'd started doing that, so the people who listen to us, they expect a death metal riff to be followed by a big chorus that with a melody that could be from a Toto album, and
Hmm.
then it goes into a fusion solo, and then back again without, you know, without any hesitation.
Okay. Okay. Well, Per, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. Hope to see you back on the road with Scar Symmetry. Any message to the Finnish fans who are waiting for you?
Well, you don't have to wait all that long. Like we have two shows, and we plan many more because Finland is it might actually be our best audience. Like we have a really strong following there. I'm like since we're putting out singles now and we have the album coming, I'm often checking like on the statistics on Spotify and YouTube, and we often see like we have the most streams in Helsinki.
Hmm.
So it seems like Finland is a very strong market for us.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be seeing the Finnish people a lot.
Okay. Thank you very much, Per. Take care, mate.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Cheers,
day.
man.
Bye
You
bye.
too.
Take care. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.